Hello, everyone, and welcome to Pro Wrestling Inside and Out. The Wrestling War of Atlanta continues. Now, the interesting thing about this, Rodney, is that both companies, Georgia Championship Wrestling, All-Star Wrestling Alliance with Ann Gunkel, both are doing very good business.
Yes.
Neither one's doing bad business.
And who's benefiting the most? The wrestling fans, because both are putting out a tremendous product. Both organizations.
We are at part 5 of this series on the Wrestling War of Atlanta. One of the most interesting parts of this is continuously start watching this, and you're going to start seeing some of the same talent just keep on being a part of All South Wrestling. No new talent, nobody new's coming to the place, and there's a reason for that. And we're going to start seeing that. And I think we'll just go ahead. Let's start it out, and we're going to start February 6th. 1973 in Atlanta, Georgia, at the Atlanta Municipal Auditorium, All South Wrestling Alliance. This is Ann Gunkel, Pedro Godet, I guess that's how you say, versus the champ. Wayne Cowan, Dirty Dutch Mantel, versus Ted Oates, Crusher Carlson versus the Avenger. Juan Caruso versus Jesse James. Randy Curtis against Oki Shakina. Bill Bowman and Joe Turner. Against Bearcat Wilkerson and Kubla Khan. Dickie Steinborn against Rock Hunter, the Assassin #2 against Tommy Siegler. Ray Candy and Argentino Apollo and El Mongo against Ox Baker, Guillotine Gordon, and Goliath. Charlie Smith, and evidently the other referee didn't show up because Tom Ernesto was credited as being referee for the card. I mean, you think that's what's happened? No referee showed up?
It's possible, or it might have been Tom Ernesto Jr. because he did referee Sim as well.
He could have been. Also, February 9th, same place, Atlanta, Georgia, 1973. Just a couple of days later, Georgia Championship Wrestling at the Atlanta Municipal Auditorium. Tank Morgan went against Koa Tiki, Petera Negra, and I never get these names right.
Delico, it looks like.
Versus Jack Evans and Trent Phillips. Mr. Wrestling 2 defeated Butcher Brannigan, Yokuchi and Fuji versus Pat O'Brien and Bob Orton Jr. Sputnik and Rocket Monroe versus Bob Armstrong and Johnny Eagle. Bill Watts, Jerry Oates, and Norvell. You notice they both had 6-man tag matches?
Yes.
I just noticed that. Bill Watts, Jerry Oates, and Norvell Austin against Bobby Shane, Tom Jones, and Tarzan Tyler. Texas Death Match, the Zodiac against Bill Drummo. No time limit match, Mr. Wrestling 1 against Gene Kiniski. Notes, by the way, the Kiniski Wrestling 1 match was to determine the challenger to face the NWA World Heavyweight Champion on February 16th, 1973, Jack Crawford. Rodney, did you ever see Jack Crawford?
I don't remember him. I do not remember Jack Crawford.
Managed by Tyler and Jones. J.C. Dykes managed Yokuchi. I guess that's how you say that in Fuji. Beauregard escorted Bobby Shane to the ring. All right, Rodney.
All right, we come up on February 10th, 1973. We're at Atlanta, Georgia at the WTCG studios at the All South Wrestling Alliance. Wade Cowan versus Tracy Rivers. Rock Hunter versus Assassin #2. Same studios, February 10th, 1973 in Atlanta, Georgia. Georgia Championship Wrestling. Paul Jones, Gordon Sully to announce the rematch that had been scheduled for the Georgia Heavyweight Championship tournament later that night in Griffin as a result of the ending of match between Mr. Wrestling 2 and the Zodiac from February the 3rd, 1973. He said that after the events of that night, he has conferred with Sam Muchnick and both agreed that the only real solution to clear up the situation was a rematch on February 10th, 1973. So it's Griffin, Georgia, Griffin at the Barnesville Sports Palace, Georgia Championship Wrestling, the Georgia Heavyweight Championship title match, Mr. Wrestling 2 versus the Zodiac by judge's decision to advance. And notes that the rematch on February the 3rd, 1973 for the Wrestling 2 Zodiac match, the ring announcer was Jim Bell, who had chosen 2 fans before the match who, in the event of a time limit draw, would vote on the winner. With Bell being the a tiebreaker if necessary. As the time expired, neither man won. Both fans selected Mr. Wrestling 2. It's February 13th, 1973. Awesome stuff. That's great. That's just great.
It is great stuff, but man, if I was at a Zodiac, I would have been mad.
Well, and you know what, though? That sets up for a great rematch.
Yes.
Where he says that, you know, that we had biased judges.
Yes, and that was bias. Yeah. All right, here we go. I forgot to put the dates, but this would have been the following week for All South Wrestling. We see Pedro Godet going against Jesse James, Wade Cowan versus Ted Oates, Oki Shikini versus Kubla Khan, Bobby Starr versus the champ. Hey, there's a new wrestler there. Juan Caruso versus the Avenger, Bill Bowman and Joe Turner. I thought his name was always Joe Sky when he wrestled. Maybe I was wrong with that.
You're talking about Bill and Joe Scott, maybe?
Yeah,
maybe one time, and then they, I think that was maybe for Nicholas. I'm not for sure, and it could have been for the Fields.
They went against Dick Steinborn and Argentino Apollo. Tommy Siegler, which was a great professional wrestler, versus Guillotine Gordon. Bob Ellis and El Mongo against Rock Hunter and the Assassin #2. Ray Candy versus Ox Baker. Tom Ernesto was the special referee for the Candy and Baker match. The match ended in a controversy with Baker claiming Bearcat Wilkerson interfered, cost him the match, but Ernesto cited interference by Gordon and Goliath. Gunkle's column in the program for this card noted that All South Championship Wrestling was popular in Georgia and North Carolina and will soon also be aired in markets in Florida, Oklahoma, and Washington. I wonder if that happened.
I don't recall them going outside of Georgia, so I'm not sure, but I don't believe they went outside of Georgia.
That would have been that. So this is February 16th, 1973, Atlanta, Georgia, the Municipal Auditorium for Georgia Championship Wrestling. Women's match, Susan Green versus Tony Rose, Terry Lathan versus Koa Tiki, Johnny Eagle and Mr. Wrestling 2 defeated Jack Evans and Tank Morgan. Georgia Tag Team Championship, Eddie and Mike Graham went against Bucknick and Rock and Monroe. Jerry Oates versus the Zodiac. Bill Drummond and Bob Armstrong went against Yokichi and Fuji. Norvell Austin and Bobo Brazil versus Tarzan Tyler and Amon Hossein. And NWA World Title match, Dory Funk Jr. versus Mr. Wrestling 1 ended in a no contest.
Excellent. So we come up. We're back at the studios, WTCG Studios, Atlanta, Georgia, on February 17th, 1973. All South Wrestling Alliance, the Avenger against Crusher Carlson, Georgia Television Championship match, Ox Baker versus Dickie Steinborn. Then on February 17th, same day, in the same studios at WTCG Studios is Georgia Championship Wrestling, the Super Infernos versus Jack McKinney and Bob Orton Jr., Jerry Oates versus Jack Evans, Norvell Austin and Bobo Brazil against Tank Morgan and the Destroyer, Sputnik Monroe against Johnny Eagle, Tarzan Tyler and Amon Hussein against Patira Negra and LC. So we'll just say LS. Okay, Bob Armstrong versus Rocket Monroe. The Zodiac joined solely to claim that he was robbed, and he was, of the Georgia heavyweight title tournament because the fans acted as judges and were biased at their decision. What did I say? It was awesome.
Yes, great
stuff.
February 20th, 1973, Atlanta, Georgia, Atlanta Municipal Auditorium, All South Wrestling Alliance. Juan Caruso went against Jesse James. We're seeing a lot of the same matches continuously happen here. Ted Oates versus the champ, Tommy Siegler against Oki Shikina, Pedro Godet versus Kubli Khan, Ray Candy and Bearcat. Who was Bearcat Wilkerson?
Need to find out who he was. I bet he was awesome.
Yeah, versus Wayne Cowan and Crusher Carlson, Randy Curtis against Guillotine Gordon. And then here we go with the WWWA World Women's Title match. Marie Vanone versus Valerie Griffin. I'm not for sure I've ever seen either one of those. Georgia Tag Team title. Dick Steinborn and Argentino Apollo versus Bill Bowman and Joe Turner. Bob Ellis, Ernie Ladd, and El Mongo versus Rock Hunter, Ox Baker, and the Assassin 2. And then Paul Jones Sports Arena. A little different. They went to the arena on February 23rd, 1973. Tank Morgan went against Pat O'Brien. The Super Infernos, managed by J.C. Dykes, went against Pantera
Negra and LS.
LS, yes. Bob Orton Jr. went against Fuji. Bill Drummo and Bob Armstrong versus Sputnik McGrow and Rocky Row by disqualification. I guess they won the match by disqualification. Mr. Wrestling 2 went against Hans Smith. I bet they did TV from there. I bet that's all those are TV matches.
It's very possible because they were doing TV from the sports arena as well. I think the show that they did at TCG was basically for Atlanta. The sports arena show went everywhere else except for because, you know, they had live shows in Macon and in Columbus at the time. Then we come up on February 24th, 1973 at WTCG Studios in Atlanta, Georgia, All South Wrestling Alliance. The Avenger against Juan Caruso, Rock Hunter versus El Mongo. Tim Geohagen against Guillotine Gordon. Georgia Championship Wrestling on the same day. Sputnik Monroe against Pat O'Brien. Bobby Cash, Norvell Austin, and Arman Hussein against Jack Evans, Butcher, Brannigan, and the Destroyer. Mr. Wrestling 2 against Rock Hunter. The Super Infernos against Patera Negra and Bob Orton Jr. Crawford and J.C. Dykes managed the Infernos. They had 2 managers. You know what that means? That when JC's not there, they might have had 2 sets of Infernos at the time. I wouldn't put it past them.
They could have. All right, now we go to February 27th. This was going to be a big event for All South Wrestling Alliance. It was going to take place at the Lakewood Fairgrounds. Outside, big card, Wayne Cowan went against Kubla Khan. Again, this is All South Wrestling Alliance and Gunkel. Randy Curtis against Crusher Carlson. Tommy Siegler versus the Avenger. Bill Bowman and Joe Turner against Ray Candy and Bearcat Wilkerson. Guillotine Gordon versus El Mongo. Dick Steinborn and Argentino Apollo versus Rock Hunter and the Assassin 2. And here we have the WWA World Heavyweight title match with Bob Ellis winning against Ox Baker. The only thing that happened at the time was that WWA out of Indiana did not recognize him as the World Heavyweight Champion. But I mean, I guess the show was played anywhere else, so I guess it didn't really matter. But also, Charlie Smith was credited as being the referee for that night. And we will continue our look at the Wrestling War of Atlanta. If things start heating up, and Georgia Championship Wrestling will start getting a little bit ahead of them. And it's because they're able to bring in new talent, new wrestlers. While in Gunkel, they were keeping wrestlers from going there, and so that eventually works against them. But we'll look through that and see what's going on. All right, we want to say hello to Rick Brooks. Rick, thank you so much for being a part of this video. Also, we want to say hello to Richard Hood. All South Wrestling Alliance was the first wrestling show I saw. Richard Hood.
Wow.
Thunderbolt Patterson wrestled in All South Wrestling Alliance when he first came to Georgia. I will tell you about Thunderbolt at this point in time. Thunderbolt came to actually had like 12 sellouts for them, and then leaves and starts his own wrestling at this time.
So you're saying that there's actually 3 organizations in Georgia at the time?
Yes.
Wow.
I think it's All South. I think it's the group that I think maybe it had Thunderbolt had something to do with it. So a bunch of stuff going on at the same time. Gorilla Watts. Who's Gorilla Watts there, Richard? I'm not for sure who that is. The Great Zulu.
Yes, I remember the Great Zulu.
Yeah, I always like to watch him on here. Charles Bellflower said, I'm not going to tell you what was said at the 2020 mark of last night's show. I'm not for sure. On our show? I'll have to go back and see.
Maybe it is on our show, or is it on WWE?
Yeah, maybe it was WWE. But, you know, a lot of great things took place. Very soon, Jim Barnett is going to make his way to Georgia Championship Wrestling, and may have already got there, but he makes a difference. He's starting to make a difference in what goes on in Georgia. Jim Barnett, a very smart man, and knew how to talk to all the promoters, and he was able to talk to the mayors and the governors. And Richard Hood said Gorilla Watts Guys, Gorilla Watts wrestled with All South Wrestling Alliance. Last night's show with host Brent West. I wonder what I said at 2023. I'll have to go back and see what I said. But we go. Well, I don't know what it said at 2023. I hope that everyone has enjoyed this show.
Is it something that he needs to apologize for, Charles?
Yeah. Did I say something I need to apologize for?
Because I know I wouldn't say anything that I need to apologize for.
But we're going to go ahead and stop there because there's nothing really much more that we can talk about All South Wrestling. And we may jump ahead on our next one. We may just say a little bit because the matches are getting a little redundant, so we may jump ahead a little bit.
And this is what happens to it's not just something that happens to All South. This is what happens to most all the organizations. The talent situation becomes, if you can't rotate your talent out and bring new people in, it starts to it will catch up to you eventually. And most every organization that has ever been, the same thing happens to them.
Well, folks, thank you so much for watching. We cannot ring the bell. We don't have Jack to ring the bell on this program. But go ahead, watch the video that's right down here below, and watch the All South Wrestling Alliance. Watch part 1 through 4.
Yes.
Go back and see how it all started. Thank you so much for being a part of Pro Wrestling Inside Now. We'll see you right now. Jim Barnett brought in heavy hitters from the NWA to put, yes, he did. And there was other things he did as well that he was very good at. Thank y'all so much, and we'll see you in the next video right here on Pro Wrestling Inside Now.